Happy Sunday, go Bills. I wish I was there watching this game today, but I am not. But before we get started, I'm going to have some cereal. We have Flutie Flakes from 1998. I went there with my parents back in the 98 season when Flutie caught on fire, and I still have that box unopened. I will cherish them for the rest of my life, along with my Kelly Crunch. I think these were like 2003 after Kelly was inducted into the Hall of Fame. 2002 or 3. 2002. And the hot tamale for today that I will also be cherishing for the rest of my life, along with the Flutie Flakes and Kelly Crunch, is Josh Jags. So this is courtesy of the accounting team from Alfred State for fixing their accounting software on the server. She gave me a box of 2 box of Josh Jags, 2 box of Josh Jags, yes, one to eat and the other as a collector's item. So what are we doing today? I'm going to show you how to build a virtual machine on a virtual machine platform called VMware. So this is VMware Workstation, and I've showed you Hyper-V and Oracle VirtualBox. This time I'm going to show you how to do VMware from beginning to end. So I'm going to take you through step and show you each process. Now, you can install VMware Workstation Pro for free now. Since VMware was acquired by Broadcom, you can now set up an account and you can download VMware Workstation Pro for free, which is amazing. You used to be able to just use VMware Workstation Player, which couldn't really do anything with. VMware Workstation Pro is what you would be using in the computer science lab, and it's great for testing and building virtual machines, especially for demonstration purposes like this. And you'd rather test it on a virtual machine than your own computer, because if you accidentally break it, then you're SOL. So let's get started. So I have multiple virtual machines here, and before you do go out and do something like this, make sure you check your system resources. You can do that by going to right click on the taskbar and go to Task Manager. There's also a shortcut for it, but using a key combo. But if you click on Performance, you want to check CPU. Now we have 4 cores per socket, and we have about 32 gigs of memory, and the storage, we have 465 gigs of storage. Now, it's worth noting that when you're doing type 1, type 2 traditionally if you're doing a type 1 hypervisor, if you manage that type of infrastructure, you want to store all of your virtual machine storage on a SAN. That stands for Storage Attached Network. That's where you want it. You don't want to save it on the same host machine that you're using to deploy your VMs in your cluster. You want to have a separate hardware specifically for VM storage. So now that we verified we have the specs, we're going to go ahead and create the VM. And I'm going to leave all this default at the beginning. I will install the operating system later, and it's going to be Ubuntu for this video, and I'm just going to call it Ubuntu Server. Naming conventions are very important. You want to go with a proper naming convention that will best fit your needs and keep things organized and consistent. I'm going to create a new folder and call it that. I'm not going to save it in the default location. And again, you would want to store your VMs on a separate on a separate medium, like even if it's an external hard drive, which is what I'm going to do eventually. I'm going to not leave this default here. I'm actually going to store my disk in one location, and I'm going to leave that default. And we're gonna be using thin provisioning, so we only allocate the space that's being used instead of the entire disk, because I don't want to max out um, my C drive. So I'm going to click next, and we're not quite done yet. We're going to click customize hardware, and 4 gigs of memory should suffice for now. Processors, 2 cores, that should be fine. 2 cores per socket. We're going to change the network to bridged because this computer is assigned to the DevOps VLAN, so it's already on its own network. So I've already taken care of all the layer 2, layer 3 configurations. So the security and the way that network is set up is not conventional. It has additional security precautions in place just because it's a lab environment. Like I have a penetration testing box over here and a vulnerable Linux box over here, which is also Ubuntu. So I want to take precautions and make sure they are not directly exposed or have internet access for, as a security best practice. So let's mount the disk to install our operating system. It's going to be Ubuntu 22.04. Now we're only using this terminal. We're not going to be using the graphical user interface. And let's click close and finish, but we're not done yet. So we're going to be using this as a LAMP server. That stands for Linux, Apache, MySQL, and PHP. So I'm going to be installing a web server, a database, and we're going to be this is going to be managing a website. The purpose of this server is for a website. So then we're going to go in and develop the website down the road. So I'm not quite done yet. We don't want to install a database on our on the OS partition. So we want to use another hard drive. So I'm going to select add hard disk, and it's going to be iSCSI, and we're going to create a new virtual hard disk, and I'm just going to leave it as 5 gigs, and I'm going to store as a single disk, and I'm not going to allocate all disk space because we want to stick within provisioning for these. So I'm going to do this 3 times and make sure that they're being saved to the proper folder, and they are not. So we want to go here and select Ubuntu server and save, finish, and then we're going to be doing the same thing. I think this should be good for now. So we have our OS drive. That's our the volume group that's partitioned for our operating system, and then we're going to be installing the database server and the applications, the backend on these drives once we get those mounted and created. But that'll be down the road. I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, so I'm going to click OK to finish the virtual machine, and I'm going to power on this server. And I'm going to select install Ubuntu server, and you should see a bunch of text print out. Now we're going to do a minimal install, and that's best practice. We don't need to install things that we won't be using. And when you're deploying your servers, you don't want to install unnecessary software that's not going to be utilized, because you only want to dedicate all the resources um, so they serve its purpose. So we're going to do the rest of the stuff manually. And we're going to be connecting to the server and managing it using PuTTY via SSH. And we're going to set up a private key pair so we don't need to log in as a password. So continue without updating. I'm going to make sure I select that box because I don't want to update it right now. Keyboard, yes, it's English US. And here we go. So Ubuntu server is by default, but we're going to select minimized install. And there's our network, 10.9.8.199. Make note of that. Now this is a server on a private network, so you will not be able to access it from the outside world. It will be going through my switch, which will be routed through my router, firewalled off from the outside world, and then it will go out to my ISP to gain internet access. And so here's where you can do the configuration, but I'm going to only install the OS right now. We're not going to do anything else. Done. Yes, and that's just because we're overriding this disk that we just created. So here is where we would put in the user info. We're just going to say DevOps, and it's going to be Ubuntu server. I could actually call it LAMP1, but I'm just going to call it Ubuntu server. And the password is going to be, no, you can't have my password. Yeah, we'll install the SSH. No, we don't need to worry about any of this. And it's installing. So we'll pick up later for part 2. In the meantime, let's get ready to rumble for the Bills game. They're playing Ravens, and they're red hot this year, but so are the Bills. I saw this coming earlier in the season when they lost, when they played against Baltimore the first time. It was a Sunday night game, prime time. Now, it reminded me of the 1991 season when Buffalo played Kansas City. I think it was like week 6, and Buffalo was 5-0. They were on a roll. It was back in the K-Gun era when they went to their second Super Bowl. But earlier in the season, they got blown out on Monday night in Kansas City. It was like 33-6 or something. And, you know, it was a very humbling, humiliating loss. But they stuck it up here in the memory bank. And later on, they met in the divisional round. So it's going to be an exciting matchup because it kind of reminds me of that. You know, and it's kind of one of those things where, you know what happened, you know, earlier in the regular season is irrelevant now. So let's hope they win. And proud to be a Bills fan. So it's too bad my dad's not around to see them play this well because, you know, he was, you know, also a big Bills fan. So I'm sure he's watching the game from above. So rest in peace, Dad. This is the install is complete, I think. So I think I can reboot it, which is what I'm going to do. And we will pick up on the next video. Over and out.